European cities that counts over 200 large cities among our membership, representing more than 150 million people across 38 countries from within and outside the European Union. I must say that the foundation of Eurocities actually happened in a very important year for Europe. It's the year when Europe decided to improve the Treaty of Rome framework of making a more prosperous and a stronger European Union. It was the Single European Act year, and as we are preparing for the European election, actually it was the year when the official nomination of European Parliament was recognized in the treaties. And the powers of European Parliament increased as the wish of strongest cities in Europe manifested in Eurocities. And since then, it continued to develop. And as we are here in Cluj-Napoca, which is one of the symbols of development and modernization in Romania, it couldn't be a better place to choose for this moment another place to celebrate. And now, as the organizers provided a very nice video that I would like to watch together about Romania and about Cluj-Napoca, if the technical team is ready, I will be ready to follow together the next 2 minutes of video presentation of Romania and Cluj-Napoca. Please.
Here, where the Carpathian Mountains whisper tales of old, and the Danube flows gracefully towards the Black Sea. Nestled within the historical region of the lands beyond the forest lies a city that represents the beating heart of Transylvania. And within the city, the spirit of Europe itself. It's Cluj-Napoca, a place that hundreds of thousands of people call home. For millennia, it has been a melting pot of cultures, a crossroad where East meets West, a vibrant mosaic of particularities. And those particularities, when dancing together, create a unique local identity that complements a community built around the values of the European Union. Democracy, peace, solidarity, unity. It's nothing more than a recipe of everything that brings us together. But as simple as it sounds, it's as complex as it gets. Because it's about passion. It's about the dreams of students who travel from across Europe to study in our prestigious universities. It's about the traditions of those who've lived here for generations. It's about the emotions of young families who settle here to begin their new lives. It's about the will to persevere of those who want to make a better promise of tomorrow. It's about the hopes of entrepreneurs who see in Cluj-Napoca a fertile ground for innovation. It's about the aspirations of a community united in their commitment to building a brighter future. It's about us, a lively community thriving under the auspices of the European Union. This is our recipe. This is our way. This is Cluj-Napoca. This is Romania. This is Europe. Welcome home, EU.
Impressive indeed. It's impressive for the people who are here for the first time. But for sure, every time I come back in Cluj-Napoca, I'm still impressed because the progress, the rhythm of progress, it's still increasing. Actually, 3/4 of the Europeans are living in cities, and the power and the beauty of Europe, it's based on big cities. The bigger they are, the stronger they are, the more beautiful they are with their history, with their identity, but also with common challenges. And as we are in Cluj-Napoca, a big city, a beautiful city, an intelligent one, ready to host this event, I'm glad that you also have the chance to see some nice images from Cluj-Napoca. And as your presence here underscores the collective commitment to creating more sustainable, inclusive, and vibrant urban spaces, I propose to you for the next 2 days of Eurocities to work together to inspire change and drive progress for the benefit of all our communities. The program for these 2 days you can find in the QR code that the organizers provided. It's embedded in your badges, but also it's going to be projected here. So you just scan this QR code and you'll find out all the details regarding the program. And now we are ready to enter in the opening session. Not before asking you to join me in honoring Europe and our host Romania, listening to the anthems, the European anthem and then the Romanian one. Mulțumesc foarte mult. Iar acum, după acest moment solemn, and now, ladies and gentlemen, after starting with celebrating the European spirit in a real European capital like Cluj-Napoca became and continues to develop, today and tomorrow we will focus on green, resilient, and innovative cities. And what better champion of this than our host city, Cluj-Napoca, a leading European city in climate change, innovation, business, environment, and education. A city which is represented by Mayor Emil Boc, one of the long-standing leaders of your local public administration in Romania, the president of Romanian Association of Municipalities, important member of European Committee of Regions. After serving as Prime Minister in the first period after entering the EU, starting ambitious reforms, implementing the necessary measures to deal with the economic crisis, Emil Boc came back home in Europe, in Cluj-Napoca, as a mayor. He joined the European Committee of Regions as a member of Romanian delegation. And now, with your applause, let's introduce and welcome on stage our host, Emil Boc, mayor at his 5th term of the most important city of Romania, outside the capital, Cluj-Napoca. Mayor, a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Mayor Burkhard Jung, President of Eurocities, dear mayors, vice mayors, officials, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, as I did last night, I wish you again a very warm welcome in Cluj-Napoca, in the very heart of Transylvania, Romania. Thank you for coming to Cluj. Also, dear President, I would like to thank you and to your team for organizing this prestigious event in the European Union and for the whole Europe, the General Assembly of Eurocities here in Cluj-Napoca. We know that is the very first time when Eurocities is coming in this part of Europe, and your presence here is a sign that Europe is in Romania, in Cluj-Napoca, Cluj-Napoca is in Europe, and thank you for that. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, I'm going to speak at the beginning about the most important event for the European history, for the European future, which is going to take place one week ahead, the European elections. As we know, democracy and peace are not taken for granted in our Europe. And now than more ever, we have to talk about Europe, we have to talk about the future of Europe, because our future resides on our vote starting with 6th to 9th of June 2024. And I said before that peace is not in the DNA of Europe. We have peace just for the last 79 years in the European Union. For the other years, Europe was full of wars, conflicts, and tensions. Who brought peace, prosperity, and democracy in the European Union? Just the European Union as a project, the most successful project in the entire history of the European Union, brought peace here. But the peace, prosperity, democracy are not taken for granted, as many of them will think it. And especially I'm addressing here to the new generation, because they consider that what we have today is forever. Nothing is forever, dear colleagues. So we have to fight for democracy. Democracy is like biking. If you do not pedal, you cannot move forward. It's exactly the democracy. You have to exercise and practice democracy every day. We, the Europeans, we did understood, and Robert Schuman said 70 years ago, better fight around the table than on the battlefield. And we understood that just through collaboration, just working together is the key to our future. Unfortunately, you are in a country where the war is at the border of the European Union. 40 kilometers out of the border of Romania, we have war. Why? Why we still have back war in Europe? We have war in Europe because someone from the East did not understood that the future belongs to cooperation, not to conflicts. So that, I think, what we have done in the Eurocities, as all the European governments did it, all the people from the Europe said, we have to stop Putin moving forward. We have to support Ukraine as long as it needs to win this war, because it's a war not just for them, it's a war which defends our values, our European values. So we must support Ukraine as long as it takes. Of course, Europe is not perfect. Of course, we still have problems in terms of inflation, housing, climate change, security, defense, strategic autonomy, agriculture, farmers. But without peace, we can solve nothing. So first, we have to focus on democracy and peace in order to solve our problems. And Europe is the solution, not the cause of our problems. We have to talk with our citizens to emphasize that our Europe provided the solutions. Our Europe provided to us access to prosperity, access to liberty and democracy, not the other way around. So, dear colleagues, I strongly recommend you, when you will go back for the last week, to go in every house and to discuss with everyone about the future of Europe, and to encourage pro-European forces to join together and to have a stronger Europe after 9th of June 2024, because our Europe is stronger with pro-European forces, and I strongly advise to do that. Now, in the second part, I'm also to talk about another value which I strongly believe is so important for our Europe, is the cohesion. The cohesion, it's that glue which is keeping us together. We need to emphasize that in Europe, we do not have net contributors or net winners of the cohesion policy. We have net winners, not net contributors or net beneficiaries. Net winners we have in the European Union, and we need to emphasize that we need cohesion for every region, for every city in the European Union. Because as we need, for example, for a just transition, in every region of the European Union, we need a mechanism of just transition. For the automotive industry, we need a just transition in every corner of the European Union. So that glue must be kept, must be reinforced in order to have a stronger Europe. And here I want to quote what former Prime Minister of Italy, Enrico Letta, said in the last report about single market and competitiveness. He mentioned a very concrete thing. On the other hand, on one hand, he said, we cannot allow to have half of the European Union untapped as a potential for the single market. But in the same time, cohesion policy is the other face of the coin of the single market. As long as we have single market, we need cohesion policy. So we need jobs, single market, but in the same time, to have a balanced Europe, we need cohesion policy. And he said, freedom to move, but also freedom to stay. How important is this message for Europe? Yes, freedom of movement is the most important freedom of our European citizens. But at the same time, nobody should be forced to leave his own city, regions, or country due to the economical reason. So in order to have a real freedom in the European Union, you have also to have the freedom to stay, to choose to stay home, and to have not just one-way ticket from east to the west, for example, but double ticket back and forth in the European Union. So we have to fight for that. We have to fight for a stronger cohesion policy in our Europe. Now, thank you. Because our theme now is more focused on digital, resilient, and our future about the green development. As I always said, green is not anymore a choice. Green policy or Green Deal is not anymore a choice for Europe. It's a necessity. You can give up smoking, but you cannot give up pollution. It's affecting our lives every day. We have to think to the future generation, what kind of future are we going to provide for them? So from that perspective, climate change is a reality. It's happening every day. Last year in Greece, was raining for 3 days, as was raining for 3 years, just in 3 days. But we succeed in Europe not to have casualties because the cohesion policy was there and we were prepared not to have casualties, to have victims. The same amount of rain in another part of the planet, in Asia, did 50,000 casualties. Why? Because they were not prepared as Europe is prepared. And why Europe is prepared? Because we have cohesion policy, because we have been working together. So that's the way to fight about climate change. Also prevent the consequences, and we have to do that. And I remember when another commissioner of the European Union mentioned that due to the policies of the European Union, in some place of Europe, kids for the very first time in a very polluted area, they understood what the snow is. They never saw snow before because it was so polluted, it was black. But when they did all the policy of Green Deal, finally they saw that the snow is white and can enjoy the life, and we can enjoy the nature. And I think this joint force between nature and technology represents our future. Here in Cluj-Napoca, we try to promote the same approach of development based on Green Deal policies because it's just an aim of the European Union, but it's for us, for our healthy environment and for our kids. I'll invite you in a short movie to see what we have done and we are doing in Cluj-Napoca in order to encourage and to promote the green policies. So if you are ready, please provide the short movie, and after that I have the closing remarks about green, digital, and resilient. So thank you. We are part of the network of 100 climate neutral cities. So we are proud to be part of this common effort in Europe to be the very first continent by 2050 climate neutral. Our plan is, of course, by 2030 to provide a climate neutral city, Cluj-Napoca, in the broader context of the European Union. By 2028, for example, we are proposing and we are fighting and working every day to have green public transport in our city in order to achieve our aim of being a climate neutral city by 2030. Now, at the end, I would like to invite you to reflect on what Europe means for us, what Europe is providing for us every day, and I will quote Seneca, a great philosopher, who said once, if someone do not know to which port it's sailing, no wind is favorable. So I think at this very moment we have to know where we want to go with our Europe. What kind of Europe are we looking for? A stronger Europe or other kind of Europe? I think we need a stronger Europe, a more Europe bottom-up, and here is the Eurocities, the cities from the European Union, to show that the future of our Europe resides in cities, and we are the core at the heart of the European Union. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, Europe means Eurocities. Thank you for coming to Cluj-Napoca.
Thank you, Mayor Emil Boc. Congratulations for all your achievements, past, present, and future. And indeed, I must recognize that the Cluj-Napoca capacity to take and integrate the best solutions for the people who are living in the city, it's overcome only by the generosity that Cluj-Napoca is offering to everybody, publicly presenting all the achievements it's making. So thank you once again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, European elections are next week, the mayor just said. A lot at stake for all of us, and the flagship initiative, the European Green Deal, it's under heavy pressure. Yet its long-term objectives of a climate neutral and inclusive Europe by 2050 are more relevant than ever, and to meet this objective, reinforcing innovation, resilience and sustainability are essential for cities of Europe. I'm very happy to have here Mr. Burkhard Jung, Eurocities President and Mayor of Leipzig. I must tell you that he is the Mayor of Leipzig since 2006. It's a city that played a significant role in the fall of the Iron Curtain, joining Europe as a part of reunified Germany 35 years ago. And who would have guessed that the European elections in June 1989? But a few months later, we will start the unification of Europe. And now pressing issues like the Green Deal lie ahead, and it's important to bring solutions to the citizens that entrust leaders with their vote. In his work for Eurocities, Mayor Jung has led actions to support Ukrainian cities affected by the Russian war, as well as representing cities' interests in relation to the EU budget, migration, and gender equality. A quarter of the EU population and 6,000 leaders, political leaders, and experts are united under Eurocities framework. President Jung was elected by delegates from more than 200 major European cities, so his representative powers are very relevant, not only for today. He managed to mobilize the citizens in Leipzig, but also all around Europe, understanding better the challenges we are facing today. And now, let's welcome, with your applause, the Oberbürgermeister of Leipzig and President of Eurocities. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. Good morning, colleagues, dear family, Eurocities family. Good morning, dear Emil Boc, Matthias, Andre, ladies and gentlemen, participants. Happy to be in Cluj for the first time, and I'm deeply impressed. Thank you for the hospitality yesterday evening. It was a wonderful evening yesterday, and we were sitting in the garden, and the rain stopped because the mayor said, "Stop." Happy to be here. Our annual conference on green, innovative, and resilient cities. On more and heartful thank. Ladies and gentlemen, to hold our annual conference this year in Cluj, in this part of Europe, is especially very important. Emil talked about that. Exactly 20 years after the last enlargement, it witnesses how cities and its inhabitants, as the countries in general, have benefited from being part of the EU, of our common Europe. And we are only 200 kilometers away from the Ukraine, where Russia brutally attacks our European values. Our network continues to stand with Ukraine and its people, as shown by the recent visit to Kiev by our Vice President Matthias and Secretary General Andrei at the Europe Day, but also by the different activities and projects together with our Ukrainian partners. Matthias and Andrei, thank you for being in Kiev. I think it was very important. Emil talked about that. Dear colleagues, today we are just 1 week ahead of the European elections, which are absolutely crucial for the future of our continent and for us as cities. We have started our strong campaign weeks ago under the title, "A Better Europe Starts in Cities." I believe strongly that, I'm convinced that's the point. It starts in cities. To ensure that our voices are really heard, and we will continue to do so until the new commissioners are appointed and beyond. As network, we are stronger and more visible than ever due to all of you, our engaged membership. Andre, you and your staff, you did a great job in the last years. Thank you for that. When I took over the role of President of Eurocities, it was very clear to me that we needed to make democracy one of our main priorities. Not only because of the EU elections next week, but because we generally see populism on the rise across most of Europe, in our cities and surrounding areas. Racism, anti-Semitism. The daily challenges experienced by many people are about access to affordable housing and essential public services, securing a job that offers a decent salary, paying energy bills, and putting healthy food on the table. I am deeply concerned, and I know many of you are too, by the increased polarization in our societies. Within our cities and between urban and rural areas, filled by uncertainty about the future and misinformation. Populism drives hostilities, increase alienation, disregards women's and minority rights, and undermines Europe's social fabric and our communities. As local politicians, this concerns us directly. We have a great responsibility and a key role in making our cities places where freedom of expression and tolerance can thrive. The foundations of Europe's democracy are local. As we say it in our EU elections manifesto, "A Better Europe Starts in Cities." We also need an EU that champagnes our shared values. We will have this paper on the desk on this day. The value that unites us. And I will read it because I think it's absolutely essential what we have right on. As a network of more than 200 large cities, representing more than 150 million people across 38 countries, from within and outside the EU, our European collaboration is rooted in our democratic legitimacy. We believe in a strong European Union that defends and champions our shared values. Human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, rule of law, justice, human rights in Europe and beyond. As local and European leaders, we first are committed to an open, democratic, pluralistic, inclusive, and solidarity-based society. Second, stand against discrimination and exclusion based on skin color, origin or religion, gender, sexual identity or orientation, as well as social status or disability. Third, strive to make our cities sanctuaries of freedom of expressions and tolerance, recognizing the richness of diversity. Fourth, defend human rights and human dignity. We are against racism and give no room for inhumanity and exclusion. And fifth, see freedom of expression and diversity in our continuous culture of debate as valuable assets that must be defended at all costs. This includes the free development of art, culture, and media, independent science, and education for all. We invite all organizations, initiatives, and people who share the basic understanding that unites us to join forces with us for a strong and free Europe for people. Let's fight it. Let's fight for democracy in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Burkhard Jung. Let's fight, let's vote for democracy, let's assure that the fundamentals of all the values that you mentioned, put it under heavy pressure outside the European Union at the borders, but also inside, via different tools of hybrid warfare and any other dangerous things who are circulating in the public sphere. And indeed the cities, because democracy until upgraded to national and European international level, was born in a city. And the cities have the duty to maintain this flame, like the Olympic Games, because if it's not vivid, then each of us might face dangers, maybe bigger. Thank you so much. And now we move further, and regardless of European landscape that all of us are watching now, we must remember that the cities need to deliver on the expectations from citizens for a better quality of life. You, the mayors who are leading the cities, know better this reality. And the urban transformation for a just and climate-neutral future will continue. EuroCities' core idea is that cities can achieve a lot with their local stakeholders and by working together. It is my pleasure for this purpose to welcome on stage Mr. Andrei Sobchak, EuroCities Secretary General. He works to empower cities in EU decision-making through EuroCities, and he leads with an approach of multi-level cooperation between the public sector, businesses, and civil society for tangible, positive impact. I must add, and I discovered with a very big surprise, in a good way, that he's a champion of equality and diversity, as he launched the NEGO training in 2017, giving women free training on negotiating better wages, designed and delivered by Audencia Business School, women's advocacy networks, business associations, and trade unions. Within 4 years, only 4 years, more than 3,000 women were trained in these negotiation skills. But in his capacity of Secretary General, I'm inviting now, here on the stage. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, dear mayors, dear Emil Bock, dear Burkhard Jung, it's really a pleasure for me to be here. What a start for our annual conference. Thank you, Emil, for the very welcoming attitude that you had with your team, a team led by Emilia, that I would also like to congratulate for the excellent organization. And it's very symbolic, but last night when you organized the dinner, I have been attending for more than 10 years many events, and it was the first time that a host city didn't only try to present local food, but food from all over Europe. And I think that it's really the spirit of our network. We are here not only to promote our own best practices, but show and celebrate the diversity of European cities. Thanks a lot for this spirit. And I think it's a good example of the confidence and the strength that you have, because you can only celebrate the diversity of others if you are confident about your own asset. And you can be confident, of course. I have been lucky because I have been here since Sunday evening, because we organized over the last 3 days a training, and I had the possibility to see how green you are, how innovative, how resilient your city is, and all the important transformations. And it's very important because you have both presented the context that is indeed very challenging, and in this context, it's really important that we have strong cities and strong mayors. First, we need strong cities and strong mayors to defend the idea of Europe. Europe is threatened today. We have the elections in 1 week, and you as mayors, you as people working in cities, you have such an important role to defend it. One of the most striking moments that I had as Secretary General was when 2 years ago I went for the first time to Ukraine, and we met the President Zelensky with several mayors, and he told the mayors, I need you because I'm sure that there will be a fatigue concerning the horrible war of Russia, and I know that citizens will maybe want to move to other ideas at a certain point. And I think that national leaders will not be listened by citizens in the long run. It's you as mayors who are close to the citizens, who have the most level of trust, highest level of trust among citizens, that need to convince the people that you need to stand by Ukraine. And I think also you need to play this role to defend Europe, the European idea. It's under threat, and you as mayors need to play this role. And when I was walking around here in the city, I saw so many European flags, and also we saw them in the videos, and I think it's really an inspiring example for many other cities to show that when you transform your city, you create a pedestrian zone, you show that it comes also from European funds, that you put also a flag on it. When you are building a new tramway, you put the European flag on it. It's important, I think, that people understand what really Europe changes for their concrete lives, and you as a mayor, you can actually do it. And Emil Bock, you mentioned it, of course, cohesion policy is very important, and it's important that we highlight indeed that this cohesion policy has allowed, in particular, the new cities that joined the European Union over the last years have benefited a lot from it. And I think we also need to highlight in the rest of Europe that also the rest of Europe, of course, has benefited from it. Because a lot of this transformation here have also been done by businesses and people working in other parts of Europe. So I think we need to be maybe a little bit more proactive and show our citizens why it's so important, because otherwise, indeed, populist parties may become even stronger. And I think also this is in particular important because we need to be future-looking, of course, and I think we as cities, we as City Network, we have an important role to play to prepare the next enlargement process and also to be more confident about it and not only see the risks of it. Of course, there will be a lot of challenges with this new enlargement process, but cities have an important role to play. And this is why I'm also so happy that in our network we have tomorrow more cities from the Western Balkans and from Ukraine that join us. And of course, it's a first step to learn with them and to start transforming the different cities. Second, we need strong mayors and strong cities to actually manage the green, the digital transformation in cities by ensuring that no one is left behind. Later this afternoon, we are talking about the Eurocities Pulse, and it shows indeed that climate action is still the key priority, even more than last year for European mayors. And also what has been much stronger than before, that social inclusion and housing have become a priority, and they are sometimes in the national debate seen as things that could compete with each other. But you in your cities, you show that actually you can do both together, and you have to do both together. So your role is really very important in this field. And thirdly, of course, we need strong cities and strong mayors to influence the other levels of governance. Because if we are convinced, if we think that a better Europe starts in cities, we need to convince the national governments and the European institutions that actually these are important elements to say. And of course, we need to make sure that in the future, cities will have a stronger role in sitting around the table and when the decisions are made, that cities get additional funding, but also that cities get the capacities that they need to implement ambitious projects. So over the last 2 years, indeed, we have worked a lot in order to prepare us for this challenging future, but I think we can be confident, and I really would like to thank my whole team that has worked a lot, and all of you also, because you have been so involved. Tomorrow we will present our new strategy that says that we want a stronger network for stronger cities. So I think we are well prepared for everything, and we will do our best to make sure that with the new parliament, with the new commission, we can use all the potential of cities. And just to conclude, 3 milestones for the future. The first one is our shadow commission. So after the elections to the European Parliament, we will show that we are ready and that we have the idea of what could be the perfect commission for our continent. So our president will lead a college of gender-balanced commissioners in charge of different portfolios, and I want to thank all of those who have already shown their commitment. Emil Bock will be our shadow commissioner for cohesion policy, and he has just shown how good he can do this job in partnership with the mayor of Utrecht, so always the gender balance for each of the portfolios. Secondly, just before the summer, it's not finished yet, we will start working on the next EU budget and the multi-annual financial framework. It's important for us, and we need to be ready. So the Commission plans to have their first draft in May 2025. So we want to have a strong position. It will not be easy, given this context, but we know that Europe has new challenges to face: competitiveness, defense, the enlargement. So we need to make sure that there will still be money left for cities, because otherwise we will not be able to implement all the different actions that we have in our cities. And thirdly, last element, on October 21st and 22nd, the city of Strasbourg will host a summit of mayors where we will meet the new members of the European Parliament. This is also very important to immediately show that we want to have a strategic alliance with them and to make sure that when they have the hearings with the next commissioners, they already integrate the demand, the expectation, and the potential of cities there. So a lot of things to come, a lot of things, of course, for the next 2 days. It will be a busy moment, but I'm sure that we have many, many opportunities to get inspired, to learn from each other, to also strengthen our personal links, which is also very important. And with further this, I will hand over to the moderator again. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Secretary General. Let's not forget that also Brussels is a big city, so all the Brussels bubble understand the challenges that a big city faces. We also add the pressure that and the expectations that European citizens will focus on the next period. And as you mentioned, the gender balance necessity, I must thank all the ladies that are assuring the gender balance for this event in this nice conference room. And as we have to prove for the external audience that it's true, it is my pleasure to prepare the entering in the scene of our keynote speaker for today, for the opening plenary, Mrs. Julia Okats, Director at Systemic. And now, after this insightful and warm welcome remarks from our host, organizers, we will be happy to invite Julia Okats on the stage. She will be setting the scene actually for the discussions we will be having today and tomorrow. I must tell you that Julia works as a director at Systemic's Natural Resources and Urban Practice. She directs the long-term partnership with the UN International Resource Panel, working closely with its co-chair and former European Commissioner Janez Potočnik. Julia's work drives science-based solutions for sustainable resource management, connecting science, investor perspectives, and policy strategies. Her publications and implementation projects focus on future-fit urban economies and efficient urban forms. Her particular attention lies on leveraging AI-powered urban analytics to develop better strategies and investment plans for cities, and on challenging investment capital into integrated urban regeneration projects. Her keynote today is entitled From Science to Investing, Boosting Europe's Cities as Drivers for a Sustainable Economy. Mrs. Okats, it is my pleasure to welcome you on the stage, and you have the floor. Thank you. Welcome.
Wow, it's a lot of light up here. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that warm introduction, and thank you so much, Cluj-Napoca, for having me. It's been great so far, and I look forward to learning more. Now, you already heard a lot of inspiring input this morning, and I was asked to complement that with a more science-based input to give you that extra food for discussion for today and tomorrow and hopefully beyond. Now, we work with two strands of science, I would say. Obviously, they overlap, but they're a bit different. One I would call the more traditional material flow resource science. So this is very much our work with the UN International Resource Panel, which convenes the leading scientists across the world on these topics. So what they do is monitor material flows around the world and model different solutions. So very much natural sciences. And then the other strand of science, I would say, is more novel. Here we really look at an IA-labeled science, machine learning, and what that can tell us about patterns across cities in Europe and the world, and what we can learn from that and apply to different types of cities. And I think it fits really nicely to the theme that you have chosen. So one is very much around all the green transition. The other one is very much around the competitiveness, innovativeness, also resilience theme. And our aim is to bring that together now. Obviously, we won't do that full justice in the next 18 minutes, so it will be a bit of a speed digest of different inputs. I will do my best to draw some conclusions, but ultimately I think it lies with you today and tomorrow and hopefully beyond to put that into action, and I'd be delighted, of course, to be part of that discussion. Now, I'll start with some global context. I have seen the survey that Eurocities has done, which I thought was extremely insightful. And obviously climate change is very high on your list of concerns, also well-being, especially housing and affordability. And I think rightly so. When we look at the global challenge, we tend to look not only at climate change, but at the challenge of global resources use, of which climate change, energy use, and then resulting climate change is of course a big part, but it's a bigger set, right? If we only look at climate change, we really are in danger of finding niche solutions that then will perpetuate other problems and will drive us into inefficient routes. So we like to look at the overall challenge of natural resource use and how the world puts that into practice. Now, This chart is from the IRP, which is the acronym for the International Resource Panel, and it shows quite clearly the two interconnected problems that we have here on a global scale. We are using natural resources a lot and faster than ever, and we only have one planet, so it's quite obvious that we will run into limits there quite fast. And that is particularly problematic because we're not seeing signs of productivity improvement. So we could say, yes, okay, we use a lot, but also our technology is getting better, we're getting smarter. Quite frankly, currently we are not. So on a global level, we see that the amount of well-being, productivity, prosperity we can extract from 1 ton of, let's say, steel or concrete is not getting better, right? We're not getting better at that. Now, the good news is Europe is getting better, right? So this is a global average, but it's also not getting better fast enough, right? And in the end, we all live on one planet. So then if we look, where do we use all these resources? Where does this occur? A lot of that happens in the built environment system. So obviously we use a lot of concrete, metal, but also different type of fuels to heat our homes. And then also a lot of that happens in the mobility system. We build ever more cars and so on, streets and so on. Now looking at that, the conclusion is very easy to say, well, a lot of that happens in cities. Clearly cities are part of the problem. That is also, I think, or what I perceive how the challenge of cities is often framed. So I will skip this. This is about Europe, but it has too many numbers. So this is one of the framings that I really often see, and I'd be interested how you perceive the debate. But I perceive it very strongly this way, that okay, we use too much whatever, CO2, resources, and clearly cities are part of the problem. This is one of the statistics that I see often. 75% of emissions are in cities. Still, not every citizen has access to essential services. There are urban problems like congestion that are damaging our country's GDP because they reduce productivity. Now, all of this is true. These numbers are correct. And by the way, this chart is from an organization who I hugely respect, who I think does amazing work. It's just this chart that, unfortunately, I had to pull out as something I don't like so much. But it is correct, right? I just think the framing leads us into the wrong direction of solution finding, right? It's a problematic framing. And really, I think when we look at the data, it comes out quite clearly, and especially like recent flagship publications, that cities are very, very much part of the solution. Because people have to live somewhere. We're not comparing, emissions in a city to no emissions at all. It's still a human needs to go somewhere, right? So the alternative to living in a city is to live in a peri-urban area, suburban area, rural area, all sorts of other settlements. And it is very, very clear that the classic urban and very much European urban form is by far the most efficient way of living that we have, right? So there's a fundamental strength that we can build on, rather than always thinking about sort of all the problems. Now, of course, we still have challenges, right? I'm not going to negate that, but I think it's important to focus on those very essential strengths. Here are a few numbers. You can see that any form that is not sort of a classic inner European city form has a bunch of inefficiencies that they struggle with. A lot of that is connected to sprawling infrastructure, and then also translates more or less directly into costs, right? So we have 20 to 50% more roads that we need outside of cities. That's a lot of emissions that are very hard to abate. It's also a lot of cost and so on. And a lot of social problems come with it, access to services and so on. So why are cities so much more efficient? There are a number of reasons, right? We have optimized how people interact with each other. We have optimized the services that are there. But a lot of it comes down to how we use space, right? It's that sort of balanced density in cities that optimizes so many other things. And it's not only inherently more material efficient or climate efficient, it also enables us to then do walkability, to then build public transport, which is very hard in any other type of settlement. So I will, in the rest of my 12 minutes, I will use very much this, this proxy of space use as kind of a direct proxy to fundamental efficiency. And this is not only about resources, right? This is about quality of life. So we are not optimizing cities just to minimize resources. We're ultimately building them to provide quality of life for cities. And again, Europe has a really impressive history and also recent history of doing that together, having very resource-efficient neighborhoods and structures that provide a great quality of life. And I just put a few pictures of my favorite examples. So there's Freiburg, for example. There's Utrecht, who does a lot. I think Ghent is in the room. By the way, the picture of Cluj-Napoca I didn't put just for today. It's always been in this presentation. To be fair, I haven't studied it in detail yet, so this is on my list of to-dos. Moving on, so we looked at, okay, what if we did this, what Europe does best, what if we did it everywhere? Now we know, it's not that simple, like cities are very different, and Europe lives off its diversity, but still, if we mainstream these best practices, how much potential is there? Because the other thing that we hear a lot is Europe has built its cities, there isn't that much we can do, right? Yeah, we can retrofit a bit, we can do this and that, but ultimately the cities stand. I think that's a misconception. We move a lot, we have migration, we are regenerating our cities. There's a lot of movement, which also means there's a lot of construction still. And if we mainstreamed our best practices, we could see a lot of benefits in emissions. We could save something like 45% of European construction emissions. And this now gets a bit technical, but those emissions are often as asphalt, concrete, and they're very hard to decarbonize to anything but efficiency. You can and you should, but still sort of every bit of efficiency you can get there is sort of double worth it. We also looked at what would that mean if we mainstream these solutions for value chains, jobs, industries, and a lot of these are urban industries, right? Local construction, landscaping, architecture. And there's a lot of very high value-add economic activity in this. So for example, if you revitalize a plot, you need remediation services, architecture services, management services. All of these are good economies, good jobs, and there's about 500 to 600 billion worth of value chain opportunities in these activities. Now, I've spoken a lot about what we do good and the opportunity there. Obviously, there's still a lot to do, right? I'm not saying we can now relax and we've done it all, quite the opposite. I think it's really now time to harness that opportunity and to build on our strengths. So going back to this proxy indicator of space use, we see a very careful, slight improvement trend, which is good, but you can see 1.3% isn't very much, so we need to definitely strengthen that. And also that is just an average. If we look at sort of sub-indicators, which is like number of people in very low density settlements with not very good access to services, number of people in, let's say, 2 big houses where they don't actually use the rooms and so on, we are still seeing probably slightly problematic trend, which then in turn means if the average is slightly improving, but sort of the indicators on the worst sides are worsening, it means that somewhere there's also overcrowding and that opposite problem, right, purely mathematically. So we definitely need to look at how we optimize this in a more balanced way. And what does that actually mean? Space use is a bit abstract. What it means is transforming our cities into what I like to call balanced density. I think density often has a bit of a bad ring to it. We're not talking about overcrowding, we're talking about this creation of balanced density. And if you look at these transitions, I think to many of you, they will just read like a manual of good urban design, basically. So it's not rocket science, it's not something entirely new, but it's kind of a focus strategy. And it will depend a little bit on how your city looks like, of course. Not every city has the exact same priorities, but a big one is, for example, about regenerating urban centers. European urban centers tend to have a really good urban form already, so it's really about strengthening them, redesigning them, and that's why I put the picture of Cluj, because I hear amazing things about regeneration initiatives here. Sometimes they're counterintuitive measures. It's actually about upsizing living space in inner cities, right? So there isn't just the choice of living in a tiny apartment. I live in central London, so I know what I talk about. And or having a massive house that will be too big for me once my kids move out. There needs to be something in between. So sometimes counterintuitively, space efficiency is about upsizing living space in the inner cities, repurposing, upfilling in a strategic way, of course, creating those public spaces so we create that balance. I won't go into all of the details. You can obviously read up on this, but I think you get the picture of the initiatives that would lead to better space use and therefore to better urban forms with this fundamental efficiency. Now again, this is not only about climate and resources, it is fundamentally about marrying an efficiency strategy with an economic strategy. And this is where the second strand of science comes in, which we call city science, a little bit for lack of a better word, but that is really using machine learning to apply these patterns and see how they affect certain indicators, economic indicators, environmental indicators across cities. This is a modeling our partners have done in a mid-sized Catalan city. I think they haven't quite published this yet, so I'm not allowed to name them, but maybe in the future I can give you the name. What they've done is they use this AI modeling technology to establish an economic strategy, very place-based economic strategy, really analyzing what are our specific strengths, weaknesses, both in urban design but also in economic setup, and then develop a strategy, what industries do we want to attract and how, and combining that with this spatial plan of spatial optimization. And this is more or less what the calculations resulted in, so a big increase in productivity, in innovativeness, so also resilient productivity, quality employment, infrastructure savings, energy savings, and interestingly also better equality in income because of that better accessibility of jobs. And of course, this example is particularly nice because it's a city that's in a very fortunate location, has a lot of untapped potential, and hasn't been doing that much in the past, so there's a lot of improvement potential. Not every city will see this massive improvement potential, and again, almost paradoxically, the cities that are already doing really well will obviously see less of an improvement potential, but basically any city we'd look at has quite some improvement potential. Now, I was asked to put it all into a conclusion from science into action, and again, I will try my best, but I think that is really the discussion that will ensue today, tomorrow, hopefully beyond, and it's very much a thought starter for discussion. So, we have all these scientific insights. What do we do with them on a city level? As I said, I think the space use strategy needs to go hand in hand with an economic idea. There's no point optimizing a city for great walkability if then we have no people that live there, or the walkability doesn't lead to the jobs that they need or something like that. So it's using that economic strategy mindset together with a spatial one, and there are new possibilities that can be AI enabled. They don't have to be, right? Urban planning has been done quite well for a while. You don't have to use AI, but there is a lot of opportunity here to make it more sophisticated and more place-based and also more efficient. Now, if you have that idea, okay, that is the economic strategy that we're going for, how do I combine that with a spatial setup, right? And again, we have new possibilities here. We call it predictive modeling. It's always good to use some flashy words. Predictive modeling of how that actually translates into a spatial plan. Now, ideally, you have that plan, which is very science-based, both using traditional resource science and AI. You have that great plan. You still need to do it, right? And usually to do it, you need someone to invest in it. The good thing about these more space use-focused transitions is that they're quite investable because they create this inherent value that you can see in economic numbers. I'm aware that other transitions, as maybe retrofitting public buildings or something like that, is inherently harder to invest in. This one is one of the transitions that's actually by nature quite investable. And the good news is that there are also new players around that are interested in investing in this. So there is obviously a lot of European and also national public finance available. We will hear more about that later today, but there are also more private investors and players moving into the space with a strong commitment to sustainability and wider urban value. So stronger respect of the science. And I will leave you with that. Thank you so much for having me, and I really look forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Julia. Now we are getting closer to the short break that we have before starting the focus sessions. We will have in this room split it 3 parts, and you'll have the opportunity to follow the discussions on climate neutral and resilient cities, skills for green and digital transformation, and strengthening innovation capacity in cities. I do remember that you have on the QR code that you might scan all the program for today and tomorrow. And also the politicians are invited to join the political track facing the democratic challenge in Room Caravaggio. After this short break, a bell will ring and remind you that you have to come back for the sessions. And coincidence or not, it's a bell because our president of Eurocities used to be a teacher, and all the pupils must be in the room when the session is starting. Thank you so much. I hope you will enjoy these 2 days.